The great hall of the Galactic Council was filled with noise and anger. Alien voices mixed together in a sound that hurt human ears. Ambassador Deho stood at the center of it all, watching the chaos around him. His face showed nothing, but inside he felt tired. So very tired. The Veltari speaker, a tall crystal being named Thisara, hit her staff on the floor. The sound rang out like breaking glass. "Order! We will have order in this chamber!" The noise slowly died down. Hundreds of alien eyes turned toward the small human section. There were only 5 humans in the entire hall. 5 humans among thousands of aliens who ruled the galaxy. "The human request has been reviewed," Thisara said. Her voice was cold and sharp. "Once again, Earth's petition for equal trade rights is denied. Your species lacks the wisdom to handle such responsibility." Deho felt something break inside his chest. This was the 15th time. 15 times humans had asked for simple fairness. 15 times they had been told no. Behind Thisara, the Korvac hive mind buzzed with shared thoughts. They looked like giant insects with too many eyes. Their leader, called the Prime Voice, spoke without moving its mouth. The words just appeared in everyone's head. "Humans are too young," the Prime Voice said. "Too wild, too unpredictable. They might break things." From the gas-filled tanks came the whispers of the Netherians. They were beings of pure energy who lived in clouds of special air. Their words sounded like wind through caves. "Give humans power, and they will misuse it. Better to keep them small. Better to keep them safe." Captain Sojin, who commanded Earth's defense fleet, stood up. She was not supposed to speak, but she could not stay quiet. "Safe?" she said. "You call this safe? You take our colonies, you block our ships. You treat us like children who cannot be trusted with anything important." "Because that is what you are," said Veldar, another crystal being. "Children who have barely learned to walk among the stars. Look at your short lives. Look at how you fight each other. How can beings who cannot even unite their own world be trusted with galactic matters?" Dr. Yunbi, Earth's top scientist, shook her head. "We have helped you solve problems. The Skarthek plague on Korvac Prime. We found the cure. The Void Pirate attacks in Sector 7. Our ships stopped them. The trade disputes between the Dolmari and the Zephyrians, we helped them make peace." "Small matters," Thisara said with a wave of her crystal hand. "Any child can clean up. Spills. It does not mean they should sit at the adult table." The hall filled with alien laughter. The sound was ugly and cruel. Deho closed his eyes and remembered his home. Earth was a small blue world far from this place. A world where children played in gardens and old people told stories by fires. A world that wanted nothing more than to be part of something bigger. But the galaxy did not want Earth. The galaxy saw humans as pets at best, pests at worst. "There is another matter," said the Prime Voice of the Korvac. "Human ships have been seen in restricted space, zones marked as forbidden." Admiral Tae-hyun, the oldest human in the room, spoke for the first time. "We were exploring, looking for new worlds where our people could live." "Without permission," Thisara said. "Humans go where they are not wanted. They ask questions about things that do not concern them. They poke at mysteries better left alone." "Maybe," said a new voice. "It is time to consider limits." The words came from Ambassador Kethvor of the Veltari Science Council. He was young for his kind, only 3,000 years old. "Perhaps humans need guidance, rules that they must follow, boundaries they cannot cross." Deho felt something cold settle in his stomach. "What kind of boundaries?" "No human ships beyond your own solar system without council permission," Kethvor said. "No human research into technologies above your current level. No human contact with species not already approved by the Council. You want to put us in a cage, Sojin said. We want to keep the galaxy safe, Thesara replied. From human mistakes, from human chaos, from human unpredictability. The vote was quick. 3,000 alien voices said yes. 5 human voices said no. It did not matter. Democracy in the Galactic Council was a lie. Only the old species had real power. Only the strong had real votes. Daeho stood slowly. The room fell, quiet. For a moment, the only sound was the hum of the station's air recyclers and the bubble of the Netherian tanks. 15 times, he said quietly. We have asked to be treated as equals. 15 times you have said no. You call us children, but children grow up. You call us wild, but wild things learn to survive. You call us unpredictable, but maybe that is not always a bad thing. He looked around the room, meeting alien eyes that held no warmth, no welcome, no hope for his species. We came here believing that intelligence meant wisdom, that age meant kindness, that power meant responsibility. His voice was steady, but those who knew him could hear the sadness underneath. We were wrong. Are you threatening us, human? Thesara asked. Her crystal face flashed with anger. No, Daeho said. We are leaving. He turned to his small group of fellow humans. Pack everything. Send the message home. Tell them it is time. Time for what? The Prime voice demanded. Daeho smiled, but it was not a happy smile. Time to stop pretending that we belong here. Time to stop begging for scraps from a table where we are not welcome. Time to find our own way. He walked toward the exit. The other humans followed. Their footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. Where will you go? Kethavor called after them. What will you do? Daeho stopped at the door. He did not turn around. We will figure it out. Humans are good at that. We are very good at adapting, when we have to. You cannot survive without the Council, Thesara said, without our protection, without our guidance. Maybe, Daeho said, but we would rather die free than live in a cage. The doors closed behind them. In the Great Hall, thousands of aliens sat in confused silence. They had expected the humans to beg, to plead, to accept their place as junior members of galactic society. They had not expected them to simply walk away. Within 3 days, every human ship in Council space was gone. Every human base was empty. Every human colony was abandoned. They left. No messages, no explanations, no forwarding addresses. Humanity had vanished as quietly as they had arrived. The galaxy barely noticed at first. After all, what difference could one small species make? Soon, they would learn the answer to that question. Soon they would understand what they had lost. But by then, it would be far too late to call the humans back. 6 months had passed since the humans disappeared. At first, the Galactic Council barely noticed they were gone. The crystal halls of the Council station seemed just as bright. The meetings went on as usual. The old species continued to make their plans for the galaxy. But small things started to go wrong. It began on Korvac Prime, the main world of the hive mind species. Dr. Hymin had been working in her lab when the alarm started screaming. She was one of the few humans who had stayed behind to finish important research. The Council had let her remain because her work was too valuable to lose. The screens showed data that made her blood turn cold. Scarthek Plague, the bioweapon that had killed millions of beings across the galaxy 300 years ago. Everyone thought it was gone forever. Everyone thought it was safe. They were wrong. How bad is it? Asked Dr. Kyung-soo, running into the lab. His face was pale with worry. Bad, Heymin said, pointing at the screen. 3 hive cities are already infected. The plague is spreading faster than the old records said it could. Where is Dr. Yunbi? Kyung-soo asked. She knows more about Scarthek than anyone else in the galaxy. Heyman's face fell. Gone. She left with the others. All her research, all her notes. She took everything when humanity pulled out. The Korvac hive minds were panicking. For the first time in 1,000 years, they felt real fear. The plague attacked their shared consciousness, turning their greatest strength into their greatest weakness. When one Korvac got sick, the infection spread through their mental links to others. The Prime Voice sent desperate messages to the Council. "We need human help," it begged. "Dr. Yunbi created the immunity treatments. Without her knowledge, we cannot stop this." But the humans were gone. Their research databases had been wiped clean. Every scientific paper they had shared with the galaxy had been deleted. It was as if human knowledge had never existed at all. Thessara stood in the council chambers, her crystal body flickering with worry. "Send ships to human space," she ordered. "Find them. Demand they return and help us." The ships returned 3 weeks later with impossible news. Human space was empty, not just empty of people, empty of everything. Planets that had been covered, with cities now showed no signs that anyone had ever lived there. Orbital stations were gone. Even the garbage floating around their worlds had disappeared. "How is this possible?" Veldar asked, his crystal voice cracking with confusion. "You cannot hide entire planets. You cannot erase all signs of a civilization." "The humans did it somehow," reported Captain Zextar of the Scout Fleet. "We found nothing. No people, no buildings, no ships, no debris. It is like they never existed at all." Meanwhile, other problems began to appear. The Void Pirates, criminals who lived in the empty spaces between stars, grew bolder. For years, they had been contained by joint patrols between Council forces and human ships. The humans had a strange way of thinking that helped them predict what the pirates would do next. Without human tactical support, the Council fleets found themselves always one step behind. Admiral Taehyun's strategies had seemed simple when he explained them. But now, trying to copy his methods, the Council forces failed again and again. Commander Sojin had once stopped an entire pirate fleet with just 3 human destroyers. She had done something the pirates never expected. She had surrendered, then attacked when they came to capture her ships. It was crazy. It was unpredictable. It worked perfectly. Now the Council admirals tried the same trick. The pirates were ready for it. They had learned to expect the unexpected from humans. But the Council forces? They were predictable. They followed rules. They did what made sense. The pirates destroyed them easily. "We need new tactics," said Admiral Koronex of the Veltari fleet. "The humans had some kind of special training, some way of thinking that we do not understand." "Chaos thinking," whispered Ambassador Kethvor. He had been studying human behavior for years. They called it thinking outside the box. They deliberately looked for solutions that made no logical sense. "That is madness," Thysara said. "Yes," Kethvor agreed. "But it worked. Trade began to suffer, too. The galaxy's economy was more connected than anyone had realized. Humans had been middlemen for dozens of species who refused to deal with each other directly. The proud Veltari would not lower themselves to trade with the young Dolmari. The Netherians found the Korvac hive mind disturbing and would not meet with them. But humans? Humans talked to everyone. They made friends with species that hated each other. They found ways to help enemies work together for mutual profit. Now, the trade networks were falling apart. Supply chains that had worked smoothly for centuries suddenly broke down. Worlds that had depended on regular deliveries of food and medicine found themselves cut off. The economy started to shake like a building in an earthquake. "Send ambassadors," Thysara ordered. "Find other species to replace the humans as intermediaries." But it was not that simple. Other species had their own pride, their own prejudices, their own ancient grudges. The humans had been neutral. They were too new to have old enemies, too weak to be threatening, too friendly to be feared. Without them, the galaxy's careful balance began to tip. The Dolmari merchant princes sent angry messages to the council. "Our trade routes are broken," they complained. "The humans used to carry our goods to 17 different species. Now we have no way to reach those markets." "Find new carriers," the council replied. "There are none," the Dolmari answered. "The Veltari say our products are beneath their notice. The Korvac find our individualism disturbing. The Netherians cannot understand our solid matter economics. Only the humans were willing to learn our ways and respect our needs." Similar complaints came from dozens of worlds. The humans had been more important to the galaxy's daily life than anyone had realized. They had filled gaps that no one else wanted to fill. They had solved problems that no one else cared about. Dr. Hei Min worked desperately in her lab, trying to recreate Dr. Yunbi's research from memory, but memory was not enough. The Scarthek plague continued to spread. More Korvac worlds fell, silent as their hive minds died. "There has to be something," she muttered, scrolling through old databases. Some backup copy, some forgotten file. But there was nothing. The humans had been thorough. When they left, they took all their knowledge with them. Every equation, every formula, every breakthrough, gone. Kyung-soo found her crying in the lab 3 days later. "I cannot do it," she sobbed. "Yunbi spent 40 years studying this plague. I have been working for 3 months. I am not smart enough. I am not good enough." "The council will not admit it," Kyung-soo said quietly. "But they are starting to panic. The Veltari science minister asked me yesterday if I knew how to contact any humans. Any humans at all." "What did you tell him?" "The truth, that they are gone. Really gone. And they are not coming back." In the council chambers, emergency sessions were called every day. The crisis reports kept piling up. Plague on Korvac worlds, pirate attacks on trade routes, economic collapse in the outer systems, and always the same question: where were the humans? "They cannot have just vanished," Thaisara insisted. "Beings do not disappear into nothing. They must be hiding somewhere." "Maybe," said Kethvor. "But the real question is not where they went. The real question is why we never noticed how much we needed them until they were gone." The crystal chamber fell silent. For the first time, some of the council members began to wonder if they had made a mistake, a very big mistake. But pride is a powerful thing, and the council had been proud for thousands of years. They could not admit that a young species like humanity might have been important. They could not accept that their perfect system had flaws, so they kept looking for other solutions, other species to fill the gaps, other ways to solve their problems. They did not yet understand that some holes cannot be filled. Some problems have only one solution, and sometimes, by the time you realize what you have lost, it is already too late to get it back. The cracks in their perfect galaxy were just beginning to show. Soon, those cracks would become breaks, and those breaks would become a complete collapse. But that was still to come. For now, the council still believed they could fix things without the humans. For now, they still thought they were in control. They were wrong about that too. 1 year after the humans vanished, Kethvor made a discovery that changed everything. He had been working alone in his laboratory, deep in the crystal caves of the Veltari homeworld. For months, he had been studying the energy signatures left behind at abandoned human colonies. At first, he thought he was looking for clues about where the humans had gone, but what he found was much more disturbing. "This cannot be right," he whispered to himself, staring at the data streams flowing across his crystal workspace. The numbers told an impossible story. The humans had not just disappeared. They had been planning their departure for decades, maybe centuries. The energy readings showed massive construction projects that had somehow stayed hidden from all Council surveillance. Resource stockpiling on a scale that suggested the humans had been preparing for something huge. Technology development that went far beyond anything they had shown to the galaxy. Kethvor's crystal body flickered with shock as he realized the truth. The humans had been lying, not about small things, about everything. He called up the old records from human diplomatic meetings. Ambassador Deho had always seemed so earnest, so honest in his requests for equality. But now, looking at the data, Kethvor could see the careful patterns hidden underneath. Every human request had been designed to get specific information. Every human proposal had been crafted to test Council responses. Every human failure had been deliberate. "They were studying us," Kethvor said out loud. His voice echoed in the empty laboratory. "All this time they were studying us." He dove deeper into the archives, pulling up military records from the conflicts where humans had helped Council forces. Admiral Taehyun's strategies had always seemed barely adequate. His fleets won their battles, but just barely. They took losses that seemed unnecessary. They made mistakes that seemed amateur. But the energy signatures told a different story. Human ships had been holding back. Their weapons were more powerful than they claimed. Their defenses were stronger than they showed. Their technology was far more advanced than anyone suspected. Captain Sojin's famous surrender trick against the Void pirates was not desperation. It was a calculated test to see how pirates would respond to unexpected tactics. Every lucky human victory had been carefully planned to look like luck. The humans had been playing weak on purpose. Kethvor's research led him to Dr. Yunbi's medical databases. The brilliant human scientist who had saved the galaxy from the Skarthek plague. Her research papers were models of careful observation and logical thinking. They showed a mind that was very good, but not exceptional. But the energy readings from her laboratory told a different story. Equipment signatures showed she had been working with technologies that were centuries ahead of what she claimed to understand. Her published papers were deliberately simplified. Her real research had been hidden. She was not just smart, Kethvor realized. She was brilliant. They all were. And they hid it from us. The same pattern appeared everywhere he looked. Dr. Kyung-soo, the theoretical physicist, who had seemed to struggle with basic galactic science concepts. His energy signatures showed he had been building experimental equipment that worked with principles the Council did not even understand. Engineer Da-eun, who had presented failed experiments with exotic matter to the Council Science Review. Bored. The energy readings showed her experiments had not failed. They had succeeded beyond anything the Council thought possible. Commander Yujin, whose tactical innovations had seemed creative but limited. The ship movement patterns hidden in the data showed she had been testing military theories that were hundreds of years ahead of current Council doctrine. Every human scientist, every human diplomat, every human military officer had been playing a role. They had pretended to be less than they were. They had fed the Council exactly what it expected to see. A young, struggling species that was trying hard but falling short, and the Council had believed every word of it. Kethvor felt something he had never experienced before in his 3,000 years of life. Shame, deep, burning shame. His species prided itself on intelligence and wisdom. They were supposed to be the smart ones, the careful observers, the beings who saw truth through lies, but the humans had fooled them completely. He called up the records of human exploration missions, ships that had supposedly been searching for new colony worlds in forbidden space. The Council had been angry about these violations of galactic law. They had seen them as proof that humans were reckless and disobedient, but the energy signatures showed something else. The human ships had not been exploring randomly. They had been conducting systematic surveys of threats the Council did not even know existed. Things living in the dark spaces between galaxies, ancient weapons left behind by dead civilizations, cosmic horrors that slept in the deep void. The humans had been protecting the galaxy, and they had done it in secret because they knew the Council would never believe such threats existed. "We called them children," Kethvor whispered. "But they were the adults. We were the children, playing at civilization while they held back the dark." The final piece of evidence was the most disturbing. Hidden in the deepest layers of the data, Kethvor found proof that the humans had developed dimensional phase-shifting technology. Not the crude dimensional manipulation that the Council knew about, but something far more advanced. The humans could step outside normal space-time. They could exist in parallel dimensions. They could literally disappear from the universe whenever they wanted, and they had used this technology to leave, not just to go to another part of the galaxy, but to go somewhere else entirely. Somewhere the Council could never follow. Kethvor spent 3 days checking and rechecking his findings. Every test confirmed the same terrible truth. Humanity had not been humanity's last chance to join galactic civilization. It had been the galaxy's last chance to prove it was worthy of humanity. And they had failed. He prepared his report with shaking hands. No, not hands. Crystal appendages that had served him for millennia, but now felt clumsy and alien. How do you tell an entire galactic civilization that they have been fools? How do you explain that the species they had dismissed as primitive was actually more advanced than all of them combined? The presentation to the full council was held in the great crystal chamber of the Veltari homeworld. Representatives from every major species attended. Even the Netherians sent their best science minds, floating in their portable atmosphere tanks. Kethvor showed them the data, the energy signatures, the hidden technologies, the proof that humanity had been deliberately holding back for centuries. The chamber fell into absolute silence. Not the comfortable silence of beings thinking deeply, but the shocked silence of minds trying to process the impossible. Thisara was the first to speak. Her crystal voice was small and broken. "You are saying that every time we defeated them in negotiations, they let us win?" "Yes," Kethvor said. "Every time their technology seemed inferior to ours, they were pretending?" "Yes." "Every time they asked for our help, they could have solved the problem themselves?" "Yes. And they were probably protecting us from much worse problems that we never even saw." The prime voice of the Korvac buzzed with confused thoughts. "But why? Why would they pretend to be weak? Why would they hide their true abilities?" Kethvor looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. Proud beings who had ruled the stars for thousands of years. Ancient species who had never doubted their own superiority. "Because they were studying us," he said quietly. "Learning everything they could about galactic civilization, about how we think, how we act, how we respond to different situations. They used our arrogance against us. We saw what we expected to see because that is what they showed us." "A centuries-long intelligence operation," whispered Ambassador Veldar. "They infiltrated our entire civilization without us knowing it." "Not infiltrated," Kethvor corrected. "They lived among us openly. They told us who they were and what they wanted. We just refused to see the truth because it did not fit our prejudices." The implications sank in slowly. If the humans had this kind of technology, this level of planning ability, this depth of understanding about galactic civilization, then they were not the junior partners begging for acceptance. They were the senior partners deciding whether the galaxy was worth their time, and apparently they had decided it was not. Thisara's crystal form dimmed with despair. "How long do you think they were planning to leave?" Kethvor consulted his data one more time. "Based on the construction patterns and resource movements? At least 200 years, maybe longer." 200 years, she repeated. "They spent 2 centuries preparing to abandon us." "No," Kethvor said. I think they spent 2 centuries hoping we would change, hoping we would prove worthy of true partnership. The departure was their backup plan, but they gave us every chance to be better than we were. The great chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. For the first time in its history, the galaxy's rulers faced a truth they could not deny and could not change. They had not lost humanity through war or disaster or misunderstanding. They had lost humanity through their own arrogance, their own blindness, their own refusal to see strength in a form they did not recognize. And now it was too late to fix it. 2 years after humanity's disappearance, the galaxy was dying. The Scarthek Plague had evolved. Dr. Heyman and Dr. Kyung-Soo, the last humans in council space, had worked desperately to recreate Dr. Yunbi's immunity treatments. They had made some progress, but it was not enough. The plague learned faster than they could adapt. "It is getting smarter," Heyman said, her face drawn with exhaustion. She had not slept properly in weeks. "Every cure we develop, it finds a way around within days." Kyung-Soo nodded grimly. Yunbi understood something about its behavior that we do not. She saw patterns that we are missing. The plague had consumed 17 Korvac worlds. Entire hive cities went silent overnight as the infection spread through their shared consciousness. The Korvac, once proud rulers of 100 star systems, were retreating to isolated worlds, cutting their mental links to each other to stop the spread. But the plague was not the only problem. The Void pirates had grown bold beyond imagination. What had started as small raids on trade ships had become full invasions of populated worlds. They carved out territories from the chaos, setting up their own brutal kingdoms in the outer systems. Admiral Kornex of the Veltari fleet stood in his command center, staring at reports that made no sense. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "We outnumber them 100 to 1. We have better ships, better weapons, better training." His tactical officer, a young crystal being named Velnash, shook her head in confusion. "They fight like humans used to fight, sir. Unpredictable, chaotic. They do things that should not work, but somehow do." "The humans taught them," Kornex realized with growing horror. "During all those years of fighting pirates together, the humans were not just helping us, they were learning. And the pirates were learning from them." It was true. Captain Sojin's surrender tactics had been copied and improved by pirate captains across the galaxy. Admiral Tae Hyun's chaos strategies were being used against the very fleets he had once helped train. The pirates had learned to think like humans, while the council forces could only think like themselves. The result was slaughter. Council fleets that had protected the galaxy for thousands of years were being destroyed by criminals using human tactics. Trade routes that had been safe for centuries became hunting grounds for pirate wolves. But even worse things were coming out of the dark. Commander, Eugene had filed reports about strange contacts on the galactic rim, signals from dead space, ships that moved in impossible ways, entities that existed outside normal space-time. The Council had dismissed these reports as human imagination or sensor errors. Now, those things were returning, and without human fleets to drive them back, they were moving deeper into inhabited space. The first attacks came without warning. Colony worlds simply went dark. No distress calls, no wreckage, no survivors. Investigation ships found empty planets where millions of beings had lived just days before. "What happened to them?" Thaisara asked during an emergency council session. Her crystal form flickered with fear and confusion. "Unknown," reported the science officer. "No signs of violence. No evidence of evacuation. The people are simply gone." "Like the humans," whispered Ambassador Veldar. "They vanished just like the humans." But this was different. The humans had chosen to leave. These beings had been taken by something hungry and patient and utterly alien. More reports came in every day. ancient war machines waking up in dead systems, reality warping phenomena spreading like infection through subspace, cosmic horrors that the humans had somehow been keeping sleeping. Kethvor worked frantically in his laboratory, trying to understand the new threats. But human knowledge was gone. The databases were empty. The careful observations that Admiral Tae-hyun and Captain So-jin had made during their exploration missions were lost forever. "We are fighting blind," he reported to the Council. "The humans knew about these threats. They had been dealing with them for centuries. But they never shared that information with us." "Why not?" demanded Thaisara. "If they knew about these dangers, why did they not warn us?" Kethavor's answer was quiet but devastating. "Because we would not have believed them. We thought we knew everything about the galaxy. We thought we were the masters of space. If the humans had told us about cosmic horrors and dimensional predators, we would have laughed at their primitive superstitions. The truth was worse than that, though none of them wanted to say it out loud. The humans had tried to warn them in their own subtle way. Every request for deeper space exploration rights had been an attempt to expand the protective barrier around Council space. Every violation of restricted zones had been a mission to deal with threats before they became critical. The galaxy's immune system had been quietly removed, and now the infections were spreading. Trade collapsed entirely. The Dolomari merchant princes, who had once commanded fleets of cargo ships across 100 worlds, were reduced to defending their homeworld with whatever weapons they could buy. The careful economic networks that had connected thousands of species fell apart like a web with its center cut out. "We need food shipments from the agricultural worlds," reported the Dolmari ambassador. "Our people are starting to starve." "The agricultural worlds are under pirate control," Thaisara replied. "We cannot reach them." "Then we will die," the ambassador said simply. "Our civilization will end not in war, but in hunger." Similar reports came from across the galaxy. Worlds that had specialized in manufacturing could not get raw materials. Mining colonies could not ship their products to factory worlds. Medical centers ran out of supplies as the transport networks failed. The humans had been the connective tissue holding it all together. They had made the galaxy work not through force or law, but through their strange ability to make friends with everyone and find solutions to problems that seemed impossible. Now that tissue was gone, and the body of galactic civilization was dying. The Veltari homeworld, proud capital of the crystal beings, began experiencing system failures. Their great cities, powered by technologies that had worked for millennia, started shutting down one by one. "How is this possible?" Thaisara demanded. "Our power systems are perfect. They have never failed." But Kethavor had found the answer in the maintenance logs. Human engineers had been quietly upgrading and improving Veltari systems for decades. Small changes that seemed insignificant at the time, but which had made their technology far more reliable and efficient. "Engineer Da-Yun installed backup protocols in our primary power grid," he reported. "Dr. Kyung-soo improved our quantum resonance chambers. Human technicians optimized our crystal matrix alignments. They made our civilization work better, and we never noticed." "But we built these systems ourselves," Veldar protested. "They are Veltari technology. Built by Veltari," Kethavor agreed, "but maintained and improved by humans. They fixed our problems so smoothly that we thought our technology was perfect. We thought we were perfect." The same pattern appeared everywhere. Human junior partners had been quietly keeping galactic civilization running. Their inferior technology had been secretly supporting superior alien systems. Their primitive solutions had been solving advanced problems that the older species could not even see. The Netherians found their atmospheric processors failing. The Korvac discovered critical flaws in their hive mind communication networks. The Dolmari realized their trade calculation systems had been dependent on human-designed algorithms for decades. Everything was breaking down at once, not because of attack or sabotage, but because the beings who had been quietly maintaining everything were gone. Dr. Hyman sat in her laboratory, surrounded by the wreckage of her failed attempts to save the galaxy. The Scar-Thek plague continued to spread. The cosmic horrors grew bolder. The pirates ruled ever larger territories, and she could do nothing to stop any of it. "We were wrong about everything," she said to Kyung-Soo. "We thought we were joining their civilization, but they were supporting ours." "Not supporting," Kyung-Soo corrected sadly. "Building. They built a version of galactic civilization that actually worked. One where different species could cooperate despite their differences. One where problems got solved instead of ignored." "And we destroyed it," Heyman whispered. "We drove away the one species that could make the galaxy work, because we were too proud to admit they might be better than us at something." Outside their laboratory, the lights of the station flickered as power systems struggled with loads they had not been designed to handle. In the distance, warning alarms announced. Another pirate attack on the outer defenses. The galaxy was falling apart, and the beings who could have fixed it were gone forever, disappeared into dimensions that the Council could not even imagine, let alone reach. The cascade had begun, and there was no way to stop it. In her private chambers, Thisara composed what she knew would be one of the last official reports of the Galactic Council. Her crystal fingers moved slowly across the datapad, each word a confession of failure. "The Council acknowledges," she wrote, "that our treatment of humanity was inadequate. We failed to recognize their true value to galactic civilization. We failed to appreciate their contributions. We failed to understand that strength comes in many forms, and wisdom does not always look like what we expect." 5 years after humanity disappeared, the Galactic Council was ending. Thisara stood alone in the great crystal chamber that had once hosted thousands of alien representatives. Now only a few dozen beings remained. The rest were dead, fled, or lost to the chaos that had consumed the galaxy. Her crystal body was cracked and dim. The proud light that had once shone from within was reduced to a faint glimmer. Around her, the chamber itself was failing. Crystal walls that had stood for 10,000 years showed stress fractures. The power systems that had once seemed eternal flickered like dying candles. "Status report," she said to the empty air. Her voice echoed in the vast space, answered only by the hum of failing machinery. The holographic displays showed the truth. She already knew. 70% of Council worlds were dark, silent, empty. The Scar-Thek plague had claimed 30 systems before burning itself out on the corpses of entire civilizations. Cosmic horrors from the deep void had taken another 20. Pirates controlled most of the rest. The Korvac hive minds were extinct. The last Nest Queen had died 3 months ago, her final thoughts broadcast across the galaxy. "We remember the small humans who helped us. We are sorry we did not listen." The Netherians had retreated to their homeworld, sealing themselves away in atmospheric domes and refusing all contact. Their last message had been simple. The humans knew the storms were coming. We should have asked them how to weather them. The Dolmari civilization had collapsed into warring city-states, each one fighting the others for dwindling resources. Their proud trade networks were just memories now, stories that starving merchants told around fires burning in the ruins of their once great market halls. Only a few Veltari worlds remained, and they were dying slowly. The crystal beings had always been proud of their long lives and patient wisdom. But patience meant nothing when your infrastructure was crumbling and your technology was failing faster than you could repair it. Dr. Heymin and Dr. Kyung-Soo were still alive. The last. Humans in Council space. They had volunteered to stay behind and help where they could. But even they could not fix everything that was broken. They were just two people trying to hold together the wreckage of a galactic civilization. Another distress call from Veltari. prime, Kyung-soo reported, his face gray with exhaustion. Their main power grid is failing. They need engineers. Send what help we can, Thaisara replied automatically. But they all knew it was pointless. There were not enough engineers left in the galaxy to fix what was broken. There were not enough of anything left. The irony was not lost on any of them. The Galactic Council had once commanded the resources of 1,000 worlds. They had technologies that could reshape planets and move stars. They had fleets that could travel across the galaxy in days and armies that could conquer entire solar systems, but they could not fix a power grid without human help. Kethvor had published his final research report 3 weeks ago. His conclusion was simple and devastating. Galactic civilization, as they knew it, was finished. Not because of war or plague or cosmic disaster, but because they had driven away the one species that had made it all work. The humans were not just part of our civilization, he had written. They were the foundation of it. They were the connective tissue that held different species together. They were the problem solvers who found solutions when everyone else gave up. They were the bridges between worlds that had nothing in common except the need to survive. His final words had been a warning that came 5 years too late. Any civilization that defines strength as domination and wisdom as superiority will eventually drive away the very people who make it worth preserving. We did not lose humanity through conquest or catastrophe. We lost them through our own arrogance, and in losing them, we lost ourselves. Thaisara had read that report 100 times. Each reading made the truth hurt more. They had not been the advanced civilization, teaching primitive humans how to behave. They had been the primitive civilization, kept functioning by human patience and ingenuity, and when that patience finally ran out, they had been left to face the universe with their own inadequate abilities. The communication systems chimed with an incoming message. For a moment, Thaisara felt a flutter of hope. Maybe it was the humans returning to help. Maybe they had changed their minds. Maybe it was not too late. But the message was from Admiral Koronex, commander of the last Veltari defense fleet. His words were heavy with defeat. The Outer Rim is lost, he reported. The last patrol ships have gone silent. The pirates have taken everything from the Andromax sector to the Kepler Nebula. We are retreating to the inner systems, but I do not think we can hold them much longer. Thaisara closed her eyes. The Andromax sector had been home to 3 billion beings just 5 years ago. Now it was pirate territory, ruled by criminals who had learned human tactics but not human mercy. She opened a communication channel to the entire galaxy, broadcasting on all frequencies. Her words would reach every surviving world, every remaining ship, every last outpost of galactic civilization. "This is Speaker Thaisara of the Galactic Council," she began. "To any who can hear this message, I want to say something that should have been said long ago." She paused, gathering her strength. For what might be the last official statement of the Council. We were wrong about everything. We called humanity primitive, but they were advanced beyond our understanding. We called them weak, but they were strong enough to hold our civilization together. We called them unpredictable, but their chaos was actually creativity, the ability to find new solutions to old problems. Her voice grew softer, heavy with regret. We thought wisdom meant knowing everything, but real wisdom is knowing when you do not know enough. We thought strength meant being able to dominate others, but real strength is being able to help others when they need it, even if they do not deserve it. The chamber was silent except for the sound of her words echoing off crystal walls. The humans tried to teach us these things, not with lectures or sermons, but with their actions. Every time they helped us solve a problem we could not handle alone. Every time they made peace between species that hated each other. Every time they found a way to make our broken systems work better. She looked up at the dying lights of the great chamber, remembering when it had been full of life and purpose and hope. We could have learned from them. We could have become better than we were. We could have built a galaxy where different kinds of beings truly work together, instead of just tolerating each other. Her voice broke slightly as she spoke the hardest. Words of all. Instead, we drove them away. We made them feel unwelcome in the very civilization they were helping to build. And when they left, they took with them not just their knowledge and their abilities, but our chance to become worthy of their friendship. The transmission would reach human space, if human space still existed. But Thisara knew it was too late for apologies, too late for second chances, too late for redemption. The humans had moved on to something better. Somewhere out there, beyond the reach of Council technology, they were probably building a new kind of civilization, one based on cooperation instead of domination, one that welcomed difference instead of fearing it, one that valued creativity and compassion above pride and tradition. They had graduated from the lesson of galactic civilization. They had learned what they needed to know and moved on to the next level of existence. The Council, meanwhile, was failing the final exam. Dr. Heyman appeared in the chamber, her face grave. "The last transport ship is ready," she said quietly. "Kyung-Soo and I are leaving for Earth space. To see if there is anything left." Thisara nodded. She had expected this. The two humans had stayed as long as they could. But there was nothing more they could do here. The galaxy was beyond saving now. "Will you give them a message?" Thisara asked. "If you find them?" Heyman hesitated. "What message?" "Tell them," Thisara said slowly, "that we understand now. Tell them we know what we lost. Tell them that some of us, at least, learned to see the truth. And if they ask why we never saw it before?" Thisara's crystal form flickered with the light of dying stars. "Tell them that wisdom is often invisible until it is gone. And by then, it is too late to call it back." The two humans left the next day. Their ship disappeared into the void, heading toward a solar system that might or might not still exist. Thisara watched them go from her private chambers, knowing she would probably never learn if they found what they were looking for. 3 days later, the power grid on the Council station failed for the last time. The crystal chamber went dark. The holographic displays shut down. The communication systems fell silent. Thisara sat alone in the darkness, feeling the cold of space slowly creep into the dying station. Around her, the last monuments of galactic civilization flickered and went out one by one. But somewhere in the deep void, beyond the reach of pride and regret, humanity was building something new, something better, something that would never make the mistakes the Council had made. They had learned the galaxy's lessons well, and then they had moved on to teach those lessons to a universe that was ready to listen. The cosmos was vast, full of infinite possibilities, full of species that might be wiser than the ones who had come before.